So here we go, guys. Let's rate all the top tier IR missiles that we have in the game, or closer to top tier on the very least. For example, the PL-8B, he's using the 13.7 BR, but you get the idea, right? What is the best IR missile that we have in the top ranks? So we start off with the AIM-9M. I gotta say, this is one of the best missiles we have. It has an enormous amount of range compared to most missiles that you see, and it has a great type of IRCCM. This missile actually uses the turn itself off seeker IRCCM. So it turns itself off when it sees a flare, and then turns itself on, sees a flare again, turns itself off. So it's a very difficult missile with a conventional flying defensive maneuver to avoid, right? And it is one of the only ones that have this, right? There are more, but you will see that a lot of the others will be other like types, the FOV, but you will get to that. So this missile has only one problem. Only one. It's not the greatest dogfighting missile compared to some of the others that we're going to talk about, right? It is the only problem that this thing has. It is a missile that turns the 30 Gs there and stuff. So it is a great dogfighting missile, don't get me wrong. But compared to something like the R-73, the Magic 2, it turns less. It has more range than those, but then you have BVR missiles, right? So I think the AIM-9M is a great missile, but it's not an S tier. I think it's not that hard sometimes if you know what you're doing, if you are a skilled pilot, to avoid it. And in a dogfight, they are, in a very short range dogfight, they can become a little bit useless if you are too close to the target, right? So yeah, great missiles, but they have a little bit of a problem. By the way, all of these missiles are amazing, okay? All of them are amazing. It's just that some of them will be better than others, right? Then we have the AIM-9LI, the German counterpart to the AIM-9M. Basically, we have an AIM-9L that it's upgraded to have an IRCCM on its seeker. The main difference between the two in-game is that the LI produces smoke and the M is a smokeless engine, which means that it is a little bit easier to see the LI coming, which means that it's a little bit easier to know when to go defensive, right? So the LI, it's a little bit worse than the AIM-9M just because of that. I mean, it's a very tiny little thing, but yeah, it's a great missile as well. Then we go for the R-73, guys, which I think it is one of the best missiles in the game. Yes, I still believe that the Russians still have their own feet on the door over here. That is just, the R-73 is one of the best, if not the best missile in the game. It's just incredible missile. If you haven't played with it, you will see what I mean. It has one problem, and that is the IRCCM in longer ranges. So here we have an FOV IRCCM, so it makes it up to be a larger FOV before a lock, and then when you get a lock, the FOV gets very, very small, like 0.75 degrees, and then it's literally almost impossible to avoid this missile depending on the range. If you are in a longer range, 4 kilometers, something like that, it will be easier because the image of the aircraft itself that it's trying to defend from the missile will be smaller, and it will be smaller than the FOV, meaning that a flare could bring the missile to miss. So it has that little problem, but everything else, the missile is amazing. This missile at a 2-kilometer shot, maybe even a little bit more than that, depending on the aircraft, 3, maybe 4 kilometers, depending on the target, it is pretty much unflareable. These missiles are amazing in the IRCCM, and they got a buff. Yes, this missile got a buff, and that's why I'm putting them above the AIM-9M over here, because that buff made sure that not only when you launch the missile, the FOV is already getting smaller, but when you get a lock, which means that when a target is pre-flaring the launch, the missile will still have a direct look on where the target is, and it will ignore, so making it be a lot easier to fire the missile on a pre-flaring target than an AIM-9M. A lot easier. So yeah, these FOVs are amazing, very much for short ranges, but still amazing. And of course, remember guys, these still have a pretty good range anyway, so if the target is not pre-flaring or anything, it is still going to have almost the same range as the AIM-9M. The AIM-9M should have a little bit more, but it's not by much. And in the dogfighting capability, this has thrust vectoring, man. It is the only missile that has that in the top rank. So yeah, Thrust vectoring, one of the best IRCCMs in the game. The range is pretty much the same. The speed, everything on this missile is amazing. And yeah, it's complicated that we see a big, not a big, but we have kind of a gap between these that I only think will be fitted with the AIM-9X. Though that missile is way better than the original R73, right? So I don't know how they're gonna do that, but yeah. Or maybe they could add the AIM M8 version or M10 versions to be a little bit more capable in the turning capability. But yeah, you get the idea, right? Then the R27ET. This is a very different missile. In the right hands, I'm gonna put it on B tier because in the right hands, this missile can be a deadly thing. But there is a problem that another missile will have in here, and that is the lack of a good IRCCM. This missile has a very old, not very effective IRCCM. So it can, like the R60M, like the AIM-9L, sometimes we reacquire a lock after it got fooled by chaff a little bit or by flares a little bit. But to be honest, from the ranges that are going to be, deploying these missiles and stuff, it is very easy to flare. So it is an amazing missile, it has an enormous amount of range, the seeker is amazing, but not having IRCCM means that it takes a lot of skill when you are flying to decide when to shoot this missile. It needs to be on a target that is not unaware of you, and then it works perfectly. Then it's almost an S tier. But if the target knows that you're there, it's kind of a D tier. Very easy missile to a fool, right? So yeah, in the future, we can have R27 ETs with a better seeker that has the IRCCM equivalent of the R73. Maybe they will probably have that in the future. I would be really surprised if we don't. But at the same time, for now, it is kind of a B tier. It's a missile that it's amazing in the right circumstances and it can be easily fooled. So it's kind of a mid-tier missile over here, in my opinion, just because of that, okay? Then we go for the AM3. This missile is kind of a forgotten gem over here. I would put right here. This missile is like an AIM-9M that is a bit better. It might lack a little bit on here or there, but to be honest, it is a fast missile. It's a faster missile than the AIM-9M, so it gets to the target faster, meaning that normally it has more energy as well. It normally has more energy, so it can get targets that are in a longer distance. And also, it turns more. It turns 40 Gs, just like an R73. Of course, it will be less technically because it doesn't have thrust vectoring, but at the same time, if you get enough distance in this missile, it will turn as much as the R73 technically, right? So it's an amazing missile. It has more energy, probably more energy in the R73. I just don't add it like better than this because of the thrust vectoring and because of the seeker shut off IRCCM, that I still believe that it is a little bit, if you know what you're doing, it might be a little bit easier to avoid if you do certain maneuvers. The FOV IRCCM, it can be easy to avoid from a longer distance, but if you are close to the target, you are dead. There's nothing you can do. Like it's a 100% kill ratio in the shorter ranges with the FOV IRCCM, right? So that's why I think the AM3 is a little bit worse, but it is better than AIM-9M, and it's one of the best missiles in the game. It's just funny that we don't see a lot of people talking about this because it is a missile that is kind of only in fewer aircraft, and nobody really... There's not a lot of Japanese main players in the game. There's less than Russian, American, and Germans, for example. So, yeah, amazing missile. I love this thing. But yeah, that's it. The Python 3, guys. Well, it's a great missile. It really is. But in the aircraft that it faces, there's no reason why. The aircraft that it has these aircraft, there's no reason why to use this because we have the AIM-9M. And why is that? The Python 3 can be better than a lot of these missiles in performance, but the thing is no IRCCM pretty much, right? So it means that it is a very easy missile to fool. So if you have the choice in these rally aircraft, you normally have that choice, of using the Python 3 or the AIM-9M. Just use the AIM-9M. It's a better missile. You will get more kills with it. Although I love to use the Python 3 just because it's unique, in its own way. So I love to use it, but there's no reason because you have the AIM-9M option anyway, right? This missile is, one of the fastest, if not the fastest missiles in the game. The turning capability is amazing, but for top tier, if you don't have an IRCCM, it just becomes a problem, okay? So, yeah, and we can even kind of draw the attention to the PL8B here, which is basically a Python 3 with the IRCCM. So we can put this missile right up there. And yeah, we're gonna put it right here. Arguably, almost as good as the R73, maybe better than the R73 in certain situations. They're very tired over here. The only thing that I prefer the R73 over is the thrust vectoring, because for very short ranges, dogfights and stuff, the R73 can do wonders that no other missile can do. But the PL8B is up there, and it's better than the R73 in some other things. Like, for example, the speed. This missile is faster than the M3 and M9M. It has more energy normally, and because of that, it can start the 40G turn, which, by the way, it has as well, so it turns better than the M9M. And the same as the AM3, but it is better than the AM3 because it gets a little bit more energy faster, and because of that, it can get to that 40G earlier. So it is a better missile than the AM3 overall because of that. It can get to that 40Gs a little bit quicker. Okay, and it is a missile that also has the FOV that I love, the FOV one. So it got the buff that I talked about, and it is pretty much impossible to avoid it depending on the distance. It is one of the best missiles in the game. The PL8B is an incredible missile. I wonder if they ever try to do a Python 3 with an IRCCM, or they just jump to the Python 4. Because I mean, this missile is amazing on the flight performance, right? It's such a simple design, but it's so good. It really is so good. And with IRCCM, it comes from a D tier to an S tier, basically, right? The IRCCM makes it up to be a usable missile in top tier. And you can even see what I'm talking about it over here, right? You can see that the green line over here is the available G load of the PL8. It is better by a tiny margin on the R73. The problem is that from basically like 0 point something seconds over here, 0.14 seconds, the R73 is already like turning more than everybody else, right? And so it starts to turn earlier. So that's why I love the R73. The thrust vectoring makes it up to be, you know, the missile that can turn the quickest, basically. And in a dogfight, that means a lot. So it's a lot better than the A9M and the AM3, as you see here. But the PL8, look at this. It is a little bit worse, very, very, by by 0.6 seconds. You know, so the very short ranges, it will be worse than the R73 and the others, but then like 0.6 seconds after that, it is turning way more than the A9M already, and way more than the AM3. So I think the PL8B still loses on the very, very short range dogfights to the R73, but it wins against the other two by quite a significant margin, I think, right? So yeah, and the speed, it wins against everything. The R73 is still better than the A9M, right? So in the longer ranges. So yeah, it's yeah, I think I'm having a very very good kind of analyzation over here, right? And then we have the Magic 2, guys. Probably the hardest missile for me to rate over here, right? Because this missile is one of the deadliest missiles we have in the game. But at the same time, it loses to some of the other ones in certain parameters. So this missile has the same IRCCM as the R73 and PL8. So I already think that it's impossible to avoid missile from up close, right? It is one of the fastest missiles accelerating, and it accelerates so fast that once it's getting to the 35G max, it is turning a little bit more than the R73. But the problem is that it caps around 35 Gs, and it has a very short burn time. So although it has a lot of speed initially, it loses out on the longer range. So I still believe that it is an S tier. It is better than AIM-9M. It is a missile that for dogfights, it should be one of the best, but it loses out even to the AIM-9s to longer ranges. Okay, that's the problem with this missile. So yeah, it can turn at a very specific, very early stage, even better by a tiny bit than the R73. So it is a missile that is amazing in the turning capability, but it caps on 35, which is Gs, which is way less. I mean, way less. No, but it's less than these three, and it has way less energy than these three. Although it accelerates really fast at very short ranges, it loses out. So for 1 kilometer shots, 2-kilometer shots, it is almost better than the R73, you know, or even better by a tiny little margin and a very specific timing of the launch, right? But after that, it loses out. So for very long range, short ranges, it might even be better than some of the others. But at the end of the day, you need more than just 1-kilometer shots, you know, and because of the thrust vectoring, you still can do some very odd shots, so he loses out for these ones because of that. I still believe that you can use radar missiles to do longer range, especially with the Mika if you're using the Rafale and Mirages, so there's not really a reason to use the Magic 2 anyway for longer ranges, which means that it is the perfect shot and kill guarantee kills from 1 to 2 kilometers, you know. So this FOV is amazing, way better than the AM3 in my opinion. So if you shoot the missile, it's a target killed, but the thing is very short range. Okay, so these are it. I know it's kind of simplified, but here you can get an idea of my personal opinion. Of course, remember that it is my personal opinion on what are the best missiles we have in top tier for IR guidance. Okay, hopefully we see the Germans and the Americans having a little bit of a better missile in the future. The Israelis with the Python 4 in the future as well. Of course, they use the M9M, but you get the idea, right? And yeah, hopefully they add the M8, right? The M8 and M9 and M10, I think, already could be an S tier missile. Like, they would turn 35 Gs and be a little bit faster, you know. So, you know, they could do that. It's a 90s missile. It doesn't matter. These are already like 90s missile, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and bye, guys. See ya.